A warm welcome to today's session at the Women's Pavilion entitled Daring to Create When Arts Shape the Future. As we say, you're in for a treat, a quite unique session that mixes the perspective of a world-acclaimed artist and that of a museum curator and director. Before we start, a bit of housekeeping. For live translation, you can use channel 1 for English and channel 2 for Japanese. Please keep your phone as much as possible in silent mode, and also, if possible, try to stay with us for the duration of the session because you will enjoy it more and the audience will enjoy it more. In today's session, we're really going to discuss how artists create and how they dare to create. What does it mean in terms of bridging different worlds and bringing perspectives together? Without further ado, it is my great honor and pleasure to welcome on stage Mariko Mori and Daisy Yiyou Wang. There's usually no need to introduce Mariko Mori. You're a world-acclaimed artist, exhibited in the most incredible spaces, and made a lasting impact with the audacity of your work and creation. So it's a real honor for us to have you here. And likewise, Daisy, it is a real honor to have you here. You've pushed the boundaries of what exhibition can be and the impact and the messages they can have. So a very warm welcome and thank you for joining us today. As a way to help our audience to connect with you, can I just start by asking you what inspires you in your work?
すいません。自然が一番インスピレーションを受けます。自然からが。
For me, beauty, love, and just the idea of we all being here, sharing. Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you so much. I would like to start our conversation by talking about the role of art in society. Why is art so important for you, and why can it be a catalyst for change?
そうですね。すごく大事な質問だと思うんですけれども、アートというのが、唯一ではないかもしれませんが、自由であるということで、自由であるということはそこから、今までなかったものを生み出す力になるということ。それが世の中を変えていく、むしろそのビジョンっていうものが先にあって、でそのビジョンから他の方々がインスピレーションを受けてその世界を作っていくっていう、そういう道筋になっているんではないかなと思うので、想像する力というものが全てを生み出しているんじゃないかなと思いますので、そういう意味でアートの力というのはとてもパワフルなものだというふうに信じています。
So maybe I can also share some of the work and through the slides. Konnichiwa. I come from the Hong Kong Palace Museum, and it's a new cultural landmark in Hong Kong. So I encourage all of you to visit as tourist and visitor. So this museum is dedicated to the promotion of the understanding and appreciation of Chinese art, particularly traditional art, heritage and history and culture. But on the other hand, the museum is also very interested in making connections among world civilizations. For example, we're thinking about doing exhibitions of actually Japanese art and arts from around the world. So to me, one of the things that is very important for the museum to do is not just to show treasures in historical context, but also make sure that history and heritage are relevant to people's life today, to important matters today, and hopefully will be interesting, maybe inspiring to people in the future. So one of the things we have been doing is to look at the presence of women in art, in history. And we found that oftentimes women's work, women's influence, women's creativity were written in invisible ink. So for the most part, invisible, even in the museum world. So we have been working with a lot of organizations, including Cartier, on exhibitions to highlight the role of women. For example, if we go back to the slide, 2023, we worked with Cartier to organize an exhibition dedicated to women patrons, designer, in Cartier's history. So I think that part is really important. How can we make history, women's story, relevant to our life today?
Thank you very much, Daisy. That's a fascinating point, and it leads me to ask you a follow-up question about the idea or the notion of risk. What does this notion means when you're in charge of a cultural space?
Well, if you think about museum, maybe you come up with relatively conservative image of museums, right? They preserve old things. That's history museum, right? I'm not talking about a contemporary art museum. Traditionally, museums are associated with the idea of risk aversion. But it's also very important, even for me, working in a historical museum, a traditional museum, it's very important to encourage my staff to take some risks, because I see the idea of risk very much associated with the concept of creativity, curiosity, community, courage. But young people sometimes, they're a little bit afraid. So encourage them in their daily work to take a little dosage of risk in everything they're doing. Because in Chinese, we have a good saying that 1,000 miles journey start with little steps, with baby steps. So I truly believe that risk-taking and creativity can happen at every level. But also, it's very important for us to hold accountable, right? So it's very important that when staff members are interested in taking risk, we always tell them that you have to do research. You have to also communicate with the audience, communicate with your colleagues, with your partners, to make sure they support you, right? If everything goes right, that's fine, but if everything goes wrong, that you need people to support you. So for example, when I was hoping to do an exhibition about women, about actual empresses in the Qing dynasty back to the 17th century to the 20th century, I was asked that, why are you doing a show of works, second-rate works? Because people believe in history, treasures created for emperor, for men, would be more important, more important and of course higher quality than objects created for women or by women. So I have to take risks, but then using my research and also mobilize all other people to support me. So that's how we actually can take risks, but also ensure that we can be successful.
That's really, really interesting, Daisy. And as a researcher in psychology, what you've just said summarizes very well what we know about the psychology of creativity. It's small steps, and it's a process and a journey rather than just the end of the journey. We talk a lot about small C's of creativity rather than big C's. And the other thing you've said as well in terms of audacity of taking risk is that if you penalize or if you finger point and blame people for the risks that they're taking, then they stop innovating and they stop creating. Turning to you, Mariko Mori, do you see art as a way to initiate change in society?
今リスクの答えを探し用意してたんですけども違う質問ですねアートがどのように変化をもたらすかということかな。そうですね、ちょっとリスクもちょっと交えて話すと、リスクっていうのは恐れを感じた時にリスクになるんですけれども、それを喜びと感じた時にはそのリスクにはならない。つまりそれちょっと世界をこう変えていくのとちょっと似ていると思うんですけれども、結果をすぐ見ようと思ったらそれも恐れとつながりリスクになるかもしれないけれども、長い目でその自分の信じていることをこう提供するというか、そういうビジョンをこうシェアするということは必ずしもそれがこうリスクにもならずに、また、その新しいビジョンというのは、そのビジョンによって、影響をこうなんていうかな、波紋のように与えていくと世の中は徐々にこう変わっていく。すごく例えばその一人一人の力では何もできないんじゃないかとか、何も変わらないんじゃないかっていうふうによくそれも恐れの人だと思うんですけれども、思うと思うんですが、そうではなくて、本当にその一人の人間の一人の、アーティストの作品が世の中を変えるっていうことは私はできるというふうに思っています。それはその意識的にもそのなんていうのかな、つながっていって、それがすごくこうインパクトを与えてこうなんていうかこうなんて言ったらいいのかな、こう文化的にもその影響を与えていくと、例えばそれがファッションになって現れたりとか、あるいはそれが建築になって現れたりとか、もともと哲学的なところにその、なんていうのかな、アンカーがあるんですけれども、そういうふうにこうどんどんその影響されていって、表層的にそういうものが出てきた時に、私たちはその文化を通してその変化というものが、見ることができて、それが歴史をこうなんていうかこう辿って見てみますと、そういうふうに私たちは進化していった、意識の進化があったというふうに思えると思います。
Thank you very much for these points. Do you see what you've just discussed as part of your quest as an artist, or is this something that comes on the side?
私の場合はそうですね、どのぐらい前からかな、20年23、制作し始めたぐらいから、もう25年ぐらい前からかな、結構その例えば新石器時代だったりとか、それは縄文時代だったりとか、古墳時代だったりとか、今は平安時代だったりとか、こう過去のその文化文明、そういうものからそのヒントを得ることっていうのが多々ありまして、でそれはどういうことかっていうと、その例えば今環境問題があった時に、それをどうやって見るかっていう時に、もうすでにそのなんていうか、人間と自然との関係というものは先ほど話したみたいに、そのトライブの人たちが関係を持っているように、英語で言うと very deeply rooted in nature, their culture。それでそういったところをですね、例えば縄文とか古墳時代からすごくこう感じることができる。でその文化をどういうふうに今のなんていうかな、現代社会においてインタープレテーションしたらいいのかなと、そのなんていうかエッセンスというものをどういうふうにこう、引き出して、そしてそれを形にして、もう一度その自分たちのなんていうかな、こう内なる問いかけにしていくことができるかなっていうのが、自分にとってのチャレンジになっています。
Very beautiful. Thank you very much for sharing this. Turning to you, Daisy, I would love for you to come back on the exhibition you curated, the great exhibition, Empresses of China's Forbidden City, 1644-1912. Why was it so important to stage that exhibition and to explain the world that you were explaining from the perspective of its royal women?
Sure, thank you. Maybe I can also go back to your first previous question about the role of art in society. I strongly feel that artists like Mariko-san, she has the magic power, right? So my job as a museum person is really to provide service to artists and also provide a platform for historical artworks to speak to people today and hopefully to the future. So we feel very strongly about how we can actually engage people and have a conversation with people, not just say, hey, this is a treasure, appreciate the beauty, right? That's the traditional way. And also, we're in a privileged position because, through art, through museum, everybody loves them, right? So it's a kind of soft sale. We want to engage people so they can actually be inspired, not just learn, not just look, but see and learn. And then hopefully something new will come to their mind. So going back to the area where I'm interested in is that oftentimes, as I mentioned, that women artists today or in the past, they have not received their due attention. And it's really important for museum curators and even audiences to advocate for women in the field.
Thank you so much. And I really love what you're saying about seeing museums not as places where knowledge dies, but where knowledge is brought to life. And you're really making the past relevant to the present, but also showcasing, which I think is something important for everyone in the audience. But when you go to the museum, it's to connect with contemporary artwork and reflect on society, or maybe it is about connecting to your own past and your own history. But ask yourself, to what extent does it help me to understand today's world and today's problems? Because we have much to learn from what's happened centuries and millennium before us. A follow-up question to this fascinating exhibition, what were some of the reactions that you got?
People were surprised that actually they imagined Chinese women all have bound feet in history. They're docile, they're quiet, but people were really surprised that in Chinese history, we have people like Empress Dowager Cixi, who ruled China for nearly 50 years as a woman, as a widow. So I think that at the time, there was also a Me Too movement. So I was actually quite surprised that even in the US or in Europe, European American people connect Chinese women's story to their own life. They were really moved. Actually, they didn't know much about Chinese history. So I think what is also important is that when you tell a culturally specific story, you make it a universal topic and then can be connected to everybody. I think that is very important lessons for us to learn. And after that, I would say we successfully did the Cartier exhibition. Many people were surprised that they found new stories. They've seen this jewelry, but they did not understand there were designers behind, there were this great patron, there were great love stories behind, the great women behind. So I think that stories also bring people together. After that, I actually asked all my colleagues to think about in each and every exhibition. I said, don't forget, every exhibition, there will be women's stories if you look closely. So most recent exhibition is an exhibition to bring French and Chinese culture from the 17th century to the 18th century. So we have treasures from Versailles, the Palace of Versailles. We had treasures from the Forbidden City. And then when I talked to colleagues, they said, oh, kings are more important than queens. I said, well, what about mistresses, right? They're famous mistresses. I said, don't forget, these women really play a very important role. Even I know in Japan, you all love this lady, or at least curious about this lady. Her name is Madame Pompadour. Another important name is Marie Antoinette, right? These two women are very important. For example, even the mistress, Madame Pompadour, and she was a great patron of the arts and the philosophy. And she was so influential because she was like the influencer today in the arts and culture. She actually controlled the imperial production of royal porcelain, which is a huge responsibility. She also controlled the king's diary and schedule, so she has enormous power. Even we are actually doing another exhibition this year. I invite all of you to come to Hong Kong Palace Museum to see an Egyptian art exhibition. So if you think about Egypt, pharaohs, mummies, right? So we have a small section on the role of queens and women pharaohs in ancient Egypt as well.
Thank you so much, Daisy. And this is a perfect transition to one of the next topics I'd like to discuss with you is the role of art in helping us to connect with other cultures. We're at the Expo, and this Expo 2025 is a way for us to connect with other cultures. We have pavilions from all around the world and also standalone pavilion like the Women Pavilion. Culture and art often goes hand in hand. Art is a form of cultural expression, but it's also a form of identity expression. And if we're trying to understand someone else's identity, we might want to see the kind of art that they connect with as a way to step into their worlds. Art is also often a way to reconcile countries. There's a lot of research about how art can bring people together. And also art can connect us with our environment, including nature. So turning to you now, Mariko Mori, much of your work speaks to universal connections between people, nature, and cosmos. What role do you see for art in reconnecting humankind and nature?
最初におっしゃってたアートの役割でその世界をコネクトするっていうところをまずちょっと答えたいなと思うんですけれども、バビルの塔が崩壊してもともと言語を共有してたのにバラバラになって人々がコミュニケーション取れなくなったっていう話ですけれども、国境があり、そして文化の違いがあり、そして言語の違いがあり、そういった意味でその分断されてしまった地球上にある人類の文化が現代美術という一つのユニバーサルランゲージによってコミュニケーションが自由にその言語に頼らず文化に頼らずそういった壁を全部取り壊してアートというものは世界中とつながることができるツールだ。またそのなんていうのかなもっとハートがつながっていくような深層意識がつながっていくような、そういう深いところでもつながることができる、なんていうのが、アートじゃないかなというふうに考えています。And then your question, can you repeat again?
The question was more about how art can connect humankind and nature.
Nature, yes, yes. So, ここは日本ですので、その日本の伝統としては、神道というものがありまして、古神道からずっとその自然を崇拝する、自然の神々を称えて自然を守る というそういうとても自然を尊む文化があります。それは世界中にも新石器時代なんかでは例えばケルトでもありますし世界中にあったんですけれども、日本は特にそれがとても顕著にありまして、そのおかげで山が守られ、森が守られ、滝が守られ、水が守られ、そういう文化があります。で、それはなんていうかなぜ具体的にいろんな、理由として、皆さんご存知のように日本には自然災害が本当にたくさんあるので、それを、避けたいという思いで、神頼みということもあるんですけれども、自然との関係が切実なわけですよね。他の国と比べてとっても自然災害が多い国なので、切実だと思います。でそれどういうことかっていうと、人間がちょっと日本語だとあれなんですがハンブルであるということがすごくなんていうのかな大事な自然との関係なんだと思います。でその自然と分離してしまった現代の社会というのは人間を自然より高い位置に置いて見ているのではないかと思うんですけれども、ただしその日本のそういう神道の文化ではそういう考え方ではなくて自然のその厳しさ尊さというものを日常の中で生活している。で、そのなんていうのかな自然との関わりの、距離感とかそれっていうものが今の時代にとってもこうなんていうかなアプリケーションとして使えるんじゃないかなってすごく根強く思います。で私の仕事としてはそういう自然への崇敬とか崇愛っていうその念を現代美術ですと先ほど申し上げたようにユニバーサルな言語というかユニバーサルなメディアなのでそれを使ってというとちょっと言葉が悪いんですけれども作品を作ること、作品を通してその自然に対する私たち現代人の崇敬の念というものを表していくということがとてもこれから大切なんではないかと。でそれが一つの、一歩であるんですけれども、そういうことによって人々の心が変わっていくんではないかというふうに信じて活動しています。
Thank you very much for these points. And when you were talking, I was looking at some of your pieces that are on display and noticing really happy faces of a lot of people, but children were very happy and very touched by your work on the pictures. And it just reminded me, you talk about a universal language, and yes, kids are very receptive to things that touches them and that things that allow them to think, not necessarily with adult words, but with the words that come to your mind. Have you ever, or do you think about every audience when you design and what a child might look when they look at your work?
その対象が、子供なんとか大人とかそういうその年代も性別もあまりなんていうかな特別に考えたりはしないんですけれども私の仕事としては、ビジョンを現実化させる、ビジョンを、物質に受体させて形にするっていうことが、基本的に作品のプロセスとしてはそういうことなんですけれども、ただなんか子供に人気があるっていうのは嬉しいなというふうに思います。でそれはどうしてかなというと、固定概念に縛られていないので自由なんだと思います。でそれは私自身もずっと大切にしてきたものであって、どうしてもなんていうかな自由であるというのは例えば遊び心だったりとか楽しいとか喜びとかそういうものがやっぱりなんていうか引き出して くれるものだと思いますし、で喜びが自分の中で創作することによってあることによって、それを体験する人あるいは見る人にも喜びを与えているんじゃないかなっていうふうに信じたいので、そういう意味では創作するという喜びが子どもたちにも伝わってたらとっても幸せだなというふうに思います。
That's such a beautiful message as well for the audience. Cultivate your inner child when you go to a museum and appreciate without judgments. Thank you so much, Mariko, for this powerful message. Turning to you, Daisy, do you see curation as an act of stewardship? And what does it mean in terms of going beyond objects, but really being a steward for collective values and collective memories?
Well, it's a very big question. I would say my taking care of objects are part of my job. So, but these days, museums' roles are changing. Previously, you think about museum as the repository of treasures, of valuable things. Today, I think that there's more meaning to it, and most museums are moving in kind of more engaging direction. For example, I always say that when we curate an exhibition, we're not just curate a pile of treasures. We're curating an engaging experience for target audiences. In fact, you walk into a museum, oftentimes these experiences are curated, meaning that we think a lot about who's going to come and their age group, their gender, the cultural background. Maybe some of them are scholars, maybe some of them like you, culturally curious. We think about how seniors would may have difficulty walking through a very, very big exhibition. So these days, I think curators' role are moving more towards a visitor-centric kind of approach. So we think a lot about what you might want to see, what you may be surprised, what's beyond your expectation. So I think that kind of sharing, communication, is really important to future curation, actually on the good basis of research and taking care of the objects. So we do quite a lot of things. For example, these days, like Mariko's works are very engaging, very interactive. We're introducing some of the digital elements even into very traditional exhibitions. In the same time, we also make sure people are still connected to objects. So I think that to make both sides working in the same exhibition is also quite important. But most importantly, I think, I always think even in the biggest exhibition space, what you can do as a curator is very limited. I think the most powerful moment for the experience is to allow visitors to imagine, and they come to their own conclusion. Maybe hopefully that everybody can feel a little bit better after their visit.
Thank you so much, Daisy. And it's a perfect transition towards the last part of our conversation. We are at the Expo, and the Expo is as much about showcasing cultural wonders and cultural differences and similarities that it is to present a shared vision of what a future could be. There's a lot of pavilions you may have seen already that are dedicated to imagining the future of society. So turning to that topic of technology and the future of society, how do you see those tools, digital, AI, and so on, as something that might shape artistic expression?
作品を作るときはテクノロジーが先ではなくて、こういう例えば一つの作品「トムナフール」という作品はスーパーカミオカンデとつながっている作品なんですけれども、どういうふうにしたら自分のコンセプトが、表現できるかということで、テクノロジーは一つのボキャブラリーなんですね。で例えば、 絵の具あるいは彫刻の石膏と同じように一つのメディアとしての、ツールというかでそのうちなんです。だけれどももし先にテクノロジーがあった場合は逆にテクノロジーに使われてしまうということがあると思うんですね。なので私が気をつけているのは確かに新しいテクノロジーは新しいおもちゃみたいにとても魅力的ではあるんですけれどもじゃあどういう、テクノロジーは何をサーブしてくれるか、自分の表現したいものに対してどうサポートしてくれるのかっていうことがすごく大事なところでありましてで例えば今AI 生成で映像なんかもできてしまうわけなんですけれどもその時になんていうか想像するのは私なわけですよね。それはもう自分の特権それを取られてしまったら楽しみが取られてしまったことになってしまうわけですからじゃあ逆にAI を使って自分がどれだけ楽しめるかっていうことをフォーカスしてテクノロジーと手を組んで作品を作っていけたらいいなというふうに思います。
Well, it's a hot topic, and I cannot agree more with Mariko's points. And in the museum, we think a lot about technology. One thing we have to keep in mind is that we cannot live without technology today. Just think if you lose your iPhone, I couldn't find your place, you're going to call your friends. But I think what really helps us is really to think about, number one, how can we do better with technology? And number two, what are the things that we can do better than technology at this point, only at this point, right? Because technology can be smarter and smarter, right? So for me as a scholar, as researcher, I think one of the things that is really important for young scholars to know is how to raise better questions, that technology can help you. But maybe even in the future, technology can also raise better questions than you, right? I would just say, I'll borrow one sentence from my artist friend, because I worship artists. So this artist said that technology and all the AI and other things helps him to think a little bit more about what is unique contribution of an artist.
Who said this?
Xu Bing, a Chinese contemporary artist.
That's a great point. And as someone that does research on the human side of artificial intelligence, there is one thing that is quintessentially uniquely human, and that's serendipity. The ability to do something and suddenly have an aha moment and apply it to something completely different. AI technology is really good at perfecting one thing that you've asked it to do. But when it comes to doing something, getting it wrong, but using that mistake into something completely different, only humans are able of such a thing. Connecting to in the last 5 minutes or so that we have together, I'd like to have your take on the role of art in designing the kind of future world in which we want to live. And perhaps asking you the first question, Mariko Mori, can art be a way of designing new realities or proposing alternative futures?
Of course. That's the duty and one of the mission of art, that we are presenting new ideas. そうだった。しかも日本語で話すことが日本語で話さなきゃいけなくそうです。もちろんそれがそのアートの役割であり、義務って言ったらあれですけれども、なんていうかな、縛られないので自由なわけですよね。ですからその新しいアイディアっていうのをなんていうかシェアする。でしかもビジュアルなので、それで例えばそのアイディアというのは例えば最近のその哲学だったりとか、あるいはそういう AI のシチュエーションだったりとか、その現代美術っていうのは社会あるいは世界の鏡なので、 それに対しての、反響というか、でそれでありながらまた望みでもあるわけですよね。でそのどういう未来を作りたいかっていう私たちの望みでもあって、でそれでこの世は形が作られているわけですから、はい、答えは Yes。
Thank you very much. And Daisy, what role for cultural institution in shaping the future?
It's a very big question, but I have my own utopian answer to this question. It's not a joke, but people laughed about it. I once proposed that when political leaders, government leaders meet, they should not only have banquets together and meetings together, they really should show the best artworks representing their country and culture. I feel that if those leaders can appreciate and really love artworks from another culture, they will have more empathy, respect, and hopefully appreciation to avoid actual wars and to avoid tariff wars.
I think it's a great way to segue back to what we're discussing, which is that art and artistic expression create dialogues and show us that we are more similar as human than we are different. Thank you very much. I want to leave the audience with one word from each of you that answers the question, what word would you use that captures what it means to dare to create, which was the theme of our session? What would be that word and why?
You artist.
But may I speak in English this time? So it's one word is so difficult. I don't know everybody answered it's just one word. But really the freedom, I repeat, it's a freedom, is that really art represent. And the freedom that could bring a joy to create, the freedom that actually, なんていうのかな。It really, the love, passion, this is really the motivation to create. So again, it's freedom.
Thank you.
My turn, I would say for me personally, would be curiosity.
And why do you think this is so important?
I think you need curiosity to explore things you may not be familiar with and dare to go beyond your comfort zone.
Thank you very much. Well, let's give a round of applause to Mariko Mori and Daisy Yiyou Wang for the time today, for an inspiring session. A bit of housekeeping before I leave you. So you have a wristband that gives you fast-track access to the exhibition anytime today. The visit takes about 20 minutes. It's a really inspiring journey. I hope you will enjoy it. We would welcome some feedback. So there is a QR code for you to scan and give us some feedback as well. And last but not least, just you have a special invitation. There is an artwork from Mariko Mori on display next door in the VIP room. Everyone in this room is invited to see the VIP room and Mariko Mori's beautiful piece. So if you want to see it, we invite you to go on your left. And if you prefer exiting without viewing the artwork, you can exit the way you came in. Thank you very much. Arigato, and have a good day.
Thank you for the money.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.